Welcome to Move Like This, brought to you by the Accounting Move Project and sponsored by Moss Adams, the Center for Accounting Transformation, and CPA Trendlines. On this podcast, we share ideas and hear from guests about how they find, retain, develop, and advance women and other underrepresented groups in their accounting firms. Now, on to our guest. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Move Like This. I am really excited today to be talking to Cassandra Bailey. She is the CEO of Slice Communications, and I recently heard her give a presentation for the Association for Accounting Marketing, and I loved it so much. I'm like, I have to have her on here for a conversation. So that's what we're doing today. So thank you so much for being here, Cassandra.
Bonnie, thanks for having me, and feel free to call me Cass. Only my mother calls me Cassandra, so Cass will work just fine.
I will absolutely do that then. Well, tell me a little bit about what you do at Slice Communications, and then also, how it is that you kind of got into the diversity, equity, and inclusion communication space.
Yeah, thank you, Bonnie. So Slice was founded in 2008. My background was more on the public relations side, but it was founded because we saw that social media was going to be one of the primary ways that companies talked with people. And
Yep.
so the firm was founded initially to bring traditional media relations and public relations together with social media. Today, we continue to be a strategic comms firm, but our breadth of services has certainly expanded. We focus not just on proactive communications to help with marketing and corporate comms, but we also do reactive communication. So, crisis management, issues management, change management. And in the midst of all of that, as communications has changed and shifted and evolved, we do quite a bit of employee communications
Mm,
because now all employee communications is also external communications.
yep.
So the proactive marketing part of it, the internal employee relations part of it, and then the crisis management part.
All right. So if somebody needs to communicate something uncomfortable, you're there to help them do it in a way that is productive and hopefully smooth, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, we're really there to help them figure out how to protect their reputation as executives, the corporate reputation for the company and the shareholders, but also to protect the business goals and what is most critical and most important to the business moving forward. So we do all of that. And then the other side of it is when they're ready to get loud and get a lot of attention and get a lot of notice for something great they're doing, we do that part too.
Oh, that's great. That is an important role that a lot of people don't necessarily bring somebody in for, but they definitely should. I think a
They
lot
should.
of issues out there could be avoided with an expert at the helm, right?
Well, and that's exactly right. And it really is about both of those pieces working well together. Because if you are well known in your industry and well respected and well regarded because you've done so well with your proactive comms, when you have a crisis, people are more likely to know that they can trust you because they have.
Mhm.
They're more likely to be on your side because they have been. And they're more likely to give you some grace in that moment and some understanding in that moment and even become your advocates in that moment because they know that you have invested in the community and in your public reputation for so many years
Yeah.
leading up to that unfortunate incident where something went sideways.
Yeah. Well, speaking of communication, let's
Yes.
pivot to accounting. So
Yes.
many of the accounting firms out there are kind of reevaluating how they frame and communicate their commitment to inclusion. So, what strategic shifts, including language, are you seeing in how organizations approach DEI today? And how can those shifts reflect a deeper alignment with evolving employee and client experience?
This is a great example of something going sideways. When most companies were doing their 2024 marketing communications planning, one thing that was not on the bingo card was federal changes as it related to DEI. It just wasn't there, right? Like maybe kind of, but then it showed up in January as a complete surprise for many. And so everybody's on their heels, more or less, or has been, and trying to figure out how to react to these changes. The biggest challenge here is that there are multiple stakeholders in this question
Oh,
of
yeah.
what is DEI, what is diversity, what is equity, what is inclusion. And for accounting firms and for other professional services firms that sell hours, right, that sell services, the people are the company.
Yeah.
And people generally like to feel included. They like to feel valued. They like to feel appreciated for who they are. They also like their colleagues to be included.
Hmm.
People generally don't want to feel crappy coming into work because they're treated differently or they're discriminated against, right? Like that is a very basic thing that employees want and that they need to feel safe is to feel included and to feel valued for everything that they bring to the job. That's one set of stakeholders. Then there's another set of stakeholders in accounting firms and other professional services firms that are the owners. And sometimes those ownership groups have different opinions as it relates to politics, as it relates to policy, as it relates to a fundamental belief around discrimination or around racial equity or around gender equity. And sometimes ownership groups have different opinions on that. And even within the ownership group, there could be different individuals who have different opinions on those policy issues and those workplace policy issues. And then you have your client group. And if your client group, your client stakeholders are private businesses, the way that they make decisions, the things that they care about, the things that they look for in their accounting firm are going to be different than if your client group is government.
Hmm.
And then even within government, there's different stakeholder groups. So you certainly have federal government stakeholder groups, state, local, county, all those different government groups. And in the past couple of years, there has been a move towards making sure that firms that represent diverse ownership groups are included in these government contracts. And at a federal level, we're seeing that go away.
Yeah.
And so, what has been really challenging in this moment is trying to manage and communicate to all stakeholder groups in a way that keeps them engaged in most cases and keep them actively involved in growing the business so that you're still getting great employees, especially in an industry with so much shortage and,
Hmm.
and challenges related to talent. That you're keeping your ownership groups engaged and feeling good about the future, and that you're also keeping the clients engaged and feeling good about the future. And so this is a really complex challenge. One, because it was a surprise. Two, because it's a big pendulum swing from where we were in 2020,
Yeah.
where the movement was towards more diversity, equity, and inclusion. And also the continued uncertainty. What executive orders around DEI really mean, what spending is happening or not happening at the federal level, and then how to keep all these different stakeholders engaged. So that's the situation as we're seeing it today. And yeah, I saw you just take a deep breath, right? Like, and blow that deep breath out because it is very complex. It is a very complex situation to navigate.
Well, considering all those audiences, um, and each one bringing their own opinions, political beliefs, whatever it might be to DEI, which I frequently argue here and in other places is not a political movement. It's all about people, not politics. But put that aside. With all these different audiences, how can firms tailor their communications to maintain consistency and clarity across the board, but also do so in a way that feels authentic?
Yeah. So the language of DEI and even the words diversity, equity, and inclusion have been redefined recently. Now, keep in mind, DEI is only a new-ish phrase that most people are aware of in the past 5 years or so. Many more people have been aware of it since the 50s. But really only since the 50s has DEI been a phrase, and up until this point, one that was considered to have value, to be a thing to aspire to
Hmm.
be something that companies wanted or people wanted to be. This phrase has changed in the past 6 months, and what it means has really changed in the past 6 months. The definition of it now is subject to different people's interpretation.
Hmm.
And a great parallel in this linguistic conversation about DEI is the term thoughts and prayers. So many years ago, thoughts and prayers, I mean, the best thing, right? Like to think of someone when something bad is happening with to them or to pray for them, to like pray for them meant a lot. And then over the years, thoughts and prayers became a throwaway phrase.
Yep.
The connotation now is I don't really care. Like, yeah, my thoughts and prayers are with you. Sure, but I'm not going to do anything about it to actually help you, right? It is this very surface level comment in a lot of situations. DEI, especially at a federal government level, has gotten a new definition. And so firms that are trying to navigate this, some of them are scared. They're like, well, I can't say diversity anymore, can I? I certainly can't say equity and I can't use the phrase DEI because they're afraid of it now. It's
Hmm.
taken on a different definition. In a lot of cases, this is an opportunity to redefine the words and to connect to your core company values. So if you're an accounting firm who really values opportunity, let's say opportunity is one of your values, that you want to give your clients opportunities to grow and you want to give young accountants the opportunity to have careers, that is a natural word to move to because it is tied to one of your existing company values. And so in some places, instead of saying DEI or instead of saying diversity programs, you have an economic opportunity program or you have a career opportunity program because that's already in your values.
Hmm.
And that creates that consistency and continuity. And it does say something to people who want to
Yeah.
hear that you still care about inclusion. That this inclusion, though, is not just, hey, be included. This inclusion can actually even go further to be, we have opportunities to offer you. And so it's a redefinition. It's the identification of new words that are more meaningful, that are more specific, and that are more tied to your company values than maybe the phrase DEI was. And isn't that a good thing? It should be, and it
Yeah.
could be if you approach it that way. Now, companies that don't have values that they can tie to that are clearly articulated or well known and are struggling with this issue, that's where to put your time and attention in to
Yes.
say, who are we? Who really are we? What do we stand for? If we're afraid of saying the words DEI or diversity, equity, inclusion, what are the words that we want to say? What is the stake we want to plant in the ground? And now is the time to have that and then build your comms from that conversation.
Yeah, and there are a lot of firms out there that haven't gone through that step, but and I love the fact that you're using the word opportunity. In June, not just a couple weeks ago, actually, I went to a DEI conference that has been rebranded as People First Opportunity and Access, which I'm like, I can get behind every single one of those words.
Yeah.
And they did it in part because, DEI has become such a polarizing term. And I think I talked on a previous episode about this. I feel like part of that is those of us in this space did not do as good a job as we could have in explaining the goals of DEI and or explaining what it is or how it works and the advantages of it for everybody. And it was easy or easier for those that are opposed to it to turn it around and make it a negative, which is kind of the point we're in right now. And, hindsight is 2020, but I think this is an opportunity for us to say, okay, you know, this phrase is loaded at this point. So what can we do to not just come up with new words because those words could get turned around too, but really explain what the goals are, why this is important, how we can get there. And so I love exactly what you're saying there.
Well, and what really happened here, right, with the language? Let's take a look at it. In all federal government programs, there is waste and fraud. There is. We all know that, right? There's going to be people who try to like work the system or take advantage of it. And that's also true in DEI programs within the government. And it's also true with set asides or contract requirements or percentages that some people took advantage of those opportunities that were meant for people who were trying to provide more value to the government. Okay. And get a shot at it because maybe they couldn't hire a lobbyist just yet, but they wanted an opportunity. And I'll just tell you, it's very, very hard to get federal government work if you don't already have federal government work.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
So access was really shut off to a number of small businesses, entrepreneurs, and others. And there were probably some accounting firms that had that experience, that personal experience, like, oh, I went after this government contract, but I couldn't get it because I don't have government work. Well, these programs were intended to try to provide more opportunities to people who haven't had government work in the past. That was the goal. However, yes, some people took advantage of it. There was fraud, there was waste. The narrative is built, this false narrative about what DEI is and that it is bad is built on these exceptions to the rule.
Hmm.
It is fundamentally false, but it's built on some very real things that happened, that do happen. Okay. So now here we are. DEI has been completely redefined by the exception,
Yeah.
not the rule, that these one-off or two-off stories of people who did the wrong thing. And we can see that as a challenge and we can see that as a problem, but we can also see it as an opportunity, knowing that the language of DEI was going to have to change anyway. It was, because language always changes, it's always evolving.
Yeah.
Another great example that I like to use is the idea of COVID or coronavirus and the many, many other things it was called in the early days, right? It was called a lot of different things.
Some really terrible racist things.
Terrible racist things, right? And
Hmm.
we as a society, like we had a word that we thought it was, which was coronavirus. Then all of these words came out about what it was. And then together as a society, we honed in on COVID. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's COVID, but even now, what COVID is means very different things. So language is going to evolve, language is going to change. We are now at a place where the DEI language has exploded and has become incredibly decentralized. And a lot of people are using many, many different words and phrases, like the conference that you went to, Bonnie. But we are going to see a consolidation of that language again, probably in the next 2 to 5 years. And we'll all have a new phrase or new terminology that we can organize around.
Yeah.
As communications professionals, our job is to navigate from here to there and to make sure that we are saying something meaningful to the people who are most important to us
Hmm.
because it is true and it is congruent and it is part of what's going to help our businesses succeed in the future. That's what we have to do.
Yeah.
And align people around those words and those phrases and what they mean. Train people on the words and phrases and lexicon that we use today. Use those words and phrases in our storytelling, in our campaigns, all throughout the year. And that's what our challenge is, and that's what we got to do. And you know what? That can be really fun. It can really drive us creatively.
Yeah.
It can. It can force us out of our comfort zones, put new constraints on what we do, and make us really, really think and question and challenge what we're saying and why we're saying it. And yeah, it's hard, but it's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's honestly another opportunity to properly frame the work that is going on and the benefits of that work,
Right.
and sometimes you don't get that opportunity, so.
You're exactly right. The
Hmm.
benefits of that work can and should become centralized and centered during this time. So, for instance, you might have an amazing employee resource group that's focused on your LGBTQ employees plus. And historically, you've told those stories and profiled those people in June.
Hmm.
Why? Because somebody decided it was Pride Month. Those people contribute to your company's success all year round. They really, truly do. And so by changing this language of like, oh, we can't say anything about pride. I mean, you can if you choose to, right? But also you can be proud of these incredible employees and show your pride in them all the time. And the benefits that they add to your clients and the benefits that they add to your community and the leadership benefits that they bring to your company.
Yeah.
The blinders are off, Bonnie. They should be.
Hmm.
We should not be putting more blinders on to be like, oh, can't say DEI. The blinders should be completely off.
Yeah. I think that's great. Well, we often hear about firms that, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, focus on the impact, focus on the benefits, but what does meaningful, measurable, I'm still using the phrase here today, DEI impact actually look like? And I guess in some ways, how is it that firms can move from, nice, well-intentioned statements to real sustainable actions, and what metrics can help ensure that accountability?
Number one, especially in the accounting industry, is recruiting and
Mhm.
hiring,
Yep.
right? There are only so many people who are getting their CPAs. And Bunny, you shared a statistic a second ago that I'd love for you to share with this audience just to help me make this point.
Yes. Well, I share this quite frequently because it's just mind-boggling to me, but currently in public accounting, so accounting firms specifically, 75% of partners qualify for retirement. That doesn't mean they're leaving tomorrow, but if they all just woke up one morning and went, I'm going to retire, they could.
Right,
And just what that would mean for the profession as a whole, even if 10% of them did that, let alone the 75% that could. And then
right,
enrollment is down in programs. Now, this latest statistic I saw said that enrollment in choosing accounting as your major for students had jumped up a little bit. So it was worse a year ago, but it's still well down from where it was, even 5 to 10 years ago. So yeah.
right. So firms who are open to recruiting and are well positioned to recruit all of those students
Hmm.
will be the ones that will be able to provide services to all of the clients. Right? If you as a firm say, no, 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 I don't want to hire that person or a person from that community, or, oh, I don't know any black accountants, where do you even get one? Guess what? That is a fundamental challenge to your ability to grow your firm and to deliver to your clients. And I have to tell you, Bonnie, like I've had people say that to me. Like, oh, well, where do you even get a black architect? Or where do you even get a Hispanic accountant? And it's like, oh my goodness. Oh, wow. Okay. Let's take a step back. But it's true. It's like the thing that's said to the side of the conference that nobody wants to ask out loud, but is said.
Yeah, I've
And
heard it.
you've heard it, right? You've heard it. And to think about these programs that are about diversity and inclusion, it's like we want to position ourselves so that Black accountants, one, know that we exist, or Hispanic accountants, or female accountants, or trans accountants, to know that we exist. Two, that they will feel good working here.
Hmm.
And number three, that they will want to refer other employees to come work here. That is a strategic advantage because it is a sourcing advantage.
Right.
That if you are willing and open and welcoming to people of all backgrounds, races, religions, sexual orientation, sexual identities, that you will have more supply to choose from. You will,
Absolutely.
right? And having more supply to choose from will help you maintain your ability to deliver to your clients and even be able to grow it. Not being open to these people, and they are wonderful accountants, right? Like not signaling to them that they will be welcome, or signaling to them that like you don't look like us, we don't really know if we want you, we're not sure that like you would be a unicorn at our firm, the only one. That doesn't feel good to most people,
Mm-mm.
right? And then it significantly hinders your ability to grow and service your clients. Similarly, your clients are becoming increasingly diverse. They are. They're becoming younger. They're becoming browner, frankly. They're becoming more dynamic, more interesting, different religions, again, different sexual orientations and sexual identities. And clients want to see a firm that reflects them. They want to look at the accounting team that's going to be working with them or the auditing team that's working with them and be like, oh, they have a similar life experience to me. Oh, they know what I went through to like work in this industry. Oh, we have some things in common that we can talk about. And sometimes that is based in their personal identities and their personal backgrounds or their socioeconomic backgrounds. And so all of that is an advantage. That is a very clear advantage. And the communication signals Either yes, you're welcome. Yes, you can come, but like you'll be on your own, or no, you're not welcome. And so the yes, you're welcome is a strategic advantage.
Absolutely agree. And this is partly why I've talked to a number of firms and, have done consulting in this area. Like a lot of times, actually, I think in all cases, you have to focus on your culture and inclusion before you focus on diversity. And, because I've also had conversation, I remember one specifically, I won't name them, but they were like, well, we really went out of our way to hire, more ethnic diversity in our new hires, but they all left after a couple of years. I'm like, well, have you asked them, did you do exit interviews or whatever to find out why? I said, but I can probably tell you without even going through that, they didn't feel comfortable. They didn't feel like they belonged. They didn't feel like they were getting either the same level of attention, the same opportunities, going back to that word, as, maybe their white or straight counterparts. And there's plenty of jobs out there that they can go to where they can feel that way. So if you really do have to look at your culture, and that's not something that you change like turning on a light either.
This is also where all internal comms is external comms.
Yes.
And the example that you gave is a great one to show where, when external comms, hey, come join us, we want you, is not aligned with internal comms, that it's false, right? And it actually, we know how expensive it is to lose employees. And so the cost of that misalignment between internal and external is the problem.
Hmm.
So, and is a big problem. And so that's why when you are doing mission-based alignment, values-based alignment, and then building your internal and external comes from that, it should be more in the same page. It should be same paged. And then that enables you to really do what you need to do in communicating to all sorts of different people that they are welcome, and then having them have that experience when once they come, and then being able to tell other people that, yes, this is a great place to work. If you're a mom, if you're Hispanic, if you're Asian, if you're gay, like this is a great place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And frankly, your people will tell you that. I'm also a really big believer in let's do some surveys and ask some questions you might not want to hear the answers to. Have somebody external do that. I've done that in a few cases. I know others that do.
Mm.
And so people feel safe and know that they can be painfully honest. And every single time I've done this and then delivered the results to a partner group or owners or whoever it is, they have asked, well, do you have any idea who said that? And I'm like, okay, we set parameters
We're
at the
not going to
very
tell
beginning of
you.
this project. I told you then I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you now. I said, but you should be grateful that they're willing to say this. And now you know. So, it's like you have your arms hurting all the time and you don't know what's causing it, so you can't address it and fix it. You
Mhm.
know, it might be painful to learn what it is that you're dealing with at your firm, but at least you know, and then you can start working on it and then measure it again in a year and see what is still lingering and what may have popped up that you didn't find out the last time. But it's such a what I see a lot of times is people want to stick their head in the sand and say, it's not a real big issue. This is kind of a blip or whatever. And those are the firms that are going to be losing people. They're not going to grow. And frankly, I mean, to a whole nother discussion, they're going to get acquired, or, just kind of shrink and not have a succession plan because you don't have the next generation there to take the reins.
Yeah. And just continuing on with the language of DEI is putting your head in the ground, and having no language about people and values and mission is putting your head in the ground. Now is the time to do the work to say, how do we want to show up in the world? What is the reputation that we want to have? And that reputation has to be changing. It has to be evolving. It has to respond to the moment, because all communication happens in context. And so if your firm continues as business as usual, that signals to people as well that your head's in the ground,
Hmm.
that you're not paying attention, that this is not something that matters to you because you're not changing when the world is changing around you.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, that kind of leads me to my next question that we had is like I believe it's the last thing I saw was it by let's see, what would we be 2045, I think there will be no ethnic or racial majority in the US. So that's pretty soon because I feel like it wasn't all that long ago that it was 2005. So we're looking at 20 years from now. And so, the US is growing more diverse. Client expectations around representation, cultural awareness, social responsibility are all shifting. I mean, you've got your ESG, you've got so many things going on right now. Um, what do you recommend for firms to kind of evolve their services? We've talked a little bit about communication styles or recruiting strategies to remain relevant and responsive in this current climate, and how can they do so responsibly so they're not just I understand the reluctance to be, letting your flag fly really high right now because it can turn some people off, but it's going to turn people off if you take it down too.
It really will. Right now is about being responsive and about being nimble. And maybe a lot of accounting firms haven't always had to be responsive and nimble in their comms. But now we got to be, right? Because the way that DEI is being considered and what the federal government is requiring is not actually law. It really is an executive order. The laws have not changed. The laws are the same. The way that the executive branch is controlling spending is different. That is very easily changeable and very quickly changeable with a new administration because nothing has been changed in the law. Everything has been changed in terms of how spending is controlled. Not
Mm.
everything, but things have been changed related to how spending is controlled. That can change and change very quickly and change very easily. What we've seen in the political landscape is a very rapid back and forth pendulum wise. 4 years, 4 years, 4 years. Like this is very different than what we as marketers who have been in this business for more than 12 years have been through.
Hmm.
Typically it's 8, sometimes it's 16, right? But we are in a pendulum swing unlike we have seen before. So, politically, so we have to be responsive and we have to be nimble. We also need to focus on communicating things that show um, our values in the community, but also our values as it relates to progressiveness. And progressiveness, I don't mean democratic or liberal, I mean making progress
Mm.
and moving forward and adopting new things. So, AI, I know, is a very hard conversation to have in the accounting world. It is. But it's one that's happening conceptually and contextually out in the rest of the
Yeah.
world. Everybody else is talking about AI and AI, the dangers of it for sure, but also the progress that some companies are seeing using it. That's something worth talking about. There's a movement, and we're seeing at different state levels to minimize or to reduce the requirements to become a CPA.
Yep.
How does your firm feel about that? Is that progress? Is that not progress for you? What does that mean for you and your firm? Those changes are happening at state levels. And even if there's not one happening in your state, there could be one happening in a state where you have an office or a state where you're doing business or where your clients exist. So
Hmm.
that's worth talking about. We're also seeing movements as it relates to more community involvement and giving back to communities in new and different ways and supporting causes, using your money, your influence, your time to support certain causes that are bringing progress to your firm and creating progress for your firm. How are you talking about that? And which ways are you talking about that? We're seeing a tremendous amount of leadership change. And Bonnie, while you say that 75% could retire today, and they're not, some percentage of that
Hmm.
group is retiring today. So, how are you positioning the new leadership? as somebody who's there to bring progress and change and react to the moment, or as somebody who's going to keep the ship steady, or is it someplace in the middle there?
Yes.
So that is a huge opportunity for communication and to either infuse your values into that leadership change communication or to say that things are going to change, they're not. Here's the new leader's perspective. And a new leader needs about 18 months to really establish their reputation of who they are and how they want to show up.
Yeah.
And most firms are going to experience some sort of leadership change in the next 2 years, if they haven't already. And if they have, they might see more leadership change. So beyond the DEI the conversation, because this pendulum is going to keep swinging and it's probably going to change again in a couple of years, maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Who knows? We have to be responsive to that,
Yeah.
but we also need to be responsive to these other changes and decide how are we communicating about equity, inclusion, our values, and our people first approach alongside of technology, political change, community change, and leadership change, because they're all happening at the same time and they're all connected. There's a through line between all of them if you have a really good comm strategy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just happens to you and you're going to be in a terrible position to try to like manage all of these different things.
Well, yeah, and you're trying to juggle all these balls at once, and rather than tying them together, and then you have a link, So it's like,
Well, and then I hate to say this, but like more things are going to go sideways, right? Like your firm could have some sort of scandal or a lawsuit, or it could have a cybersecurity breach because that's been happening, or your data can be held hostage, or you could have a weather emergency. A tornado knocks out one of your offices. These things are going to happen. Almost every firm is going to experience some crisis, small or large, in the next 5 years. They just are.
Mhm.
And so that's also an important part to think about like, okay, we have to be nimble enough to react to whatever that changes. We need to be planful enough to know how to protect our reputation, as well as our business operations, as well as our internal communications when that thing does go sideways.
Yeah, yeah. And this is just one of those things, but it is an important thing for sure.
It is. And if you can't do it internally, go get help. It's worth getting help
Yes.
because your communications will either help you navigate all of these changes or they will take you down. Or
Hmm.
you'll lose your job because you haven't been responsive to them as a marketer and as a communicator, or even as a leader in
Yep.
a multi-shareholder firm.
And not responding is not an option.
No, not to any of this.
Yes.
Do you know what, like, so in the early days of all of this DEI communications change, one of the biggest things that I heard from people, all sorts of employees again and again, is, I don't know what we're doing.
Hmm.
Like, can I post about Black History Month? Can I do this internal event that I was supposed to do? Right? Like, tremendous amounts of confusion. And confusion, Bonnie, pretty much more than anything else, creates burnout.
Well, and it also, as an employee, if you're constantly like, I don't know what I can say, I don't know what I can do, I don't know where the firm stands on this. And, I remember I was doing some social media posting for a client, no longer a client, but they always do the holidays, Memorial Day, Labor
Right.
Day, Thanksgiving, Juneteenth. I put up
Yes.
a post for Juneteenth. It's a national holiday. And they
Yep.
had one client that called and said, "What are you doing posting about this?" And, then they came to me and said, "Why were we posting about that?" I'm like, wait, should I not do national holidays? And they're like, oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, so you want me to not do one national holiday, is what you're saying. And the thing is, I'm like, I just need clarity on this. I said, but I'm going to make you say the words because, we're going to, this is something that if you don't want posts around Juneteenth or MLK Day also came up. I'm like, there's a through line here that we need to talk about. And you know what you're saying to your employees and to your clients, and the omission will be noticed.
This is where having a good comm strategy to advise leaders using can combat and help avoid a panicked response to the
Right,
one client.
right.
It was one client,
Yeah. One
right? The
client
people who
out of,
thought it was great were probably silent.
yep. one out of probably 1,000 or more clients. And, but I think a lot of times it's that visceral, like, ooh, somebody told me I did something bad. And again, if you had a communication strategy and, certainly going forward, I made recommendations for them, but it was such a odd thing but it's one tiny thing that really does speak to the values of the firm, which is how we started this conversation.
And if the leaders had the training, the internal comms to say, here's how we handle this, then it wouldn't have come to you either, right? Like to say
Yeah.
to them, hey, if somebody ever calls you about a post that we make, here's what we say. Our value is blah, blah, blah. We're going to continue to have this value. It benefits you as a client in this way. We understand and appreciate your call and your concern. And we as a firm are truly committed to blah, blah, blah. You handle that objection in a way that bridges back to your values and who you are and the value even that you add to that
Yeah.
client. And then that conversation's been handled and it doesn't
Mhm.
become a thing. It doesn't become a crisis. It becomes a conversation that was had. Great. And enlightenment occurred.
Yeah.
And everybody felt fully comfortable in having that conversation. And if that client decides to leave at some point, they were not meant to be your client anyway. But now it's been handled and there is no
Yeah.
panic. There is no spiraling. It's like,
Yeah.
yep, nothing hit the fan. The fan was on. Something headed towards the fan, but then something got that thing out of the fan because it was able to be, that objection was able to be handled because the
Exactly.
internal comms happened, the training happened, and there was an empowerment in terms of how do we talk about these things that we do or don't do.
Yep, completely agree. Well, before we move on to my end
Okay.
of conversation, sort of silly questions, what advice do you have for firm leaders, or, firm administrators, those that are kind of running the show, on how to continue creating inclusive cultures, processes, systems, whatever, especially in this time when things are, the pendulum is swinging and it can be a little complex.
One of the best things that I've heard from a woman who I admire so greatly is the idea that the core values, especially around welcoming and encouraging people who have diverse backgrounds and life experiences, is to make that thing marble in the meat. So if you think about a great steak, like a beautiful ribeye, right? It is marbled throughout. And that is what makes it delicious, is all of that
Mhm.
fat marbling. And so, if you as the leader think about how do I make this approach, this philosophy, this set of core values around welcoming everyone, making everyone feel welcome and making everyone feel that they can welcome others, part of just like what is in the vein, the marble of the company, then you will have achieved the goal that you want to achieve. So,
Mhm.
what does that look like? It means that you talk about it all the time, every day in everything that you say to individuals, to clients, to employees, in all of your town hall meetings and all of your emails. And you just find ways to celebrate and appreciate and reinforce this part of the business, just like you do ongoing training and professional development. Then you, as the leader, will be doing a job that will serve your company for the next 20 years.
Yeah,
But it's an everyday practice.
I love that. And it just makes it becomes
It's who
just,
you are.
yeah, your foundation in a way. And that way it's not hard. You really don't have to change your core messages because it is your core message.
Right.
Um, I that wonderful advice. I appreciate it.
Every time you review a brochure, you say, is there a person of color in that brochure? Is the gay community represented in it? That presentation, is it all white people? Right? Like that's the thinking that
Hmm.
gets to the point where that thinking then shows up with other people. So when you see something, it gives you a visual cue that all are welcome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been fantastic. And I know we could talk for another hour probably very easily, but Um, I do need to give you your time back a little bit here. So let's close with just a couple fun things.
Okay.
When you were a child, I usually say 5 years old, but when you could remember, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A nun, an umpire, professional baseball umpire, or the president.
Okay, that I've never heard none for sure. Why those three, and what is the through line of those
I went to
three?
Catholic school, Bonnie. I loved baseball. I actually went to professional baseball umpire school for a little bit. You don't want to watch a game
Cool.
with me, or you do. And president at the time, like, seemed cool.
Yeah.
A lot of kids want to be president.
Oh yeah, I've heard that before, but
Yeah,
not an umpire new. So I love it.
all three.
So if you were given a chance to travel anywhere, you don't have to worry about time off or having the money to do it or anything like that. Where would you go and why?
I recently actually just completed a bucket list trip. We did a three-generation family trip to Ireland,
Oh,
which you can't see me, but I got the red hair, the freckles, the blue eyes, the whole thing. So the next thing is I need to go see it, Antarctica. Like I want to see the bottom of the world. I do. I want to go see it. I'm on a quest to do all seven continents. So
oh,
Antarctica
cool.
seems like the hardest one, and so that's the one I would
Yeah.
like to do.
Ireland is on our short list for a trip. I
Wow.
also am the redheaded freckled. The whole family is that way, though we're not Irish in any way. But I just want to go because it
Go.
sounds awesome.
It is awesome. Just go.
Well, finally, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Yeah, so I would love to be in multiple places at once.
Wouldn't we all?
I would love that. Wouldn't that be great? Like picking up my kid and being the room mom at the same time that like I'm speaking at a conference. That's the thing, Bonnie. Oh man, that'd be so cool.
That's even better than teleportation, which comes up a lot because anybody who lives in an urban environment, it's like if I didn't have to sit in traffic and I need to go pick up milk, I could just be like, I just, my generation, I think of Bewitched.
Yeah.
And, I always wanted to be able to wiggle my nose like that. And, but if you could be in multiple places at the same time, that's even better.
So, just real quick, the way that I got this idea, because teleportation used to be mine, there's a book series called The Forgotten Five that my 7-year-old and I are reading together. And this one superpowered person who is running for president has the ability to project herself into a different place. So she can be her consciousness can split and be in two places at once. One is a hologram, one is the real thing. And then I was like, oh man. Like, what if you could really truly split your consciousness for a time and be in multiple places? So, thank you. The woman who wrote the book, I think her name's Lisa Mann. Thank you, Lisa Mann, for inspiring that thing that I will never be able to do. But oh, now that's what I really want.
I like it. I see many advantages to having this superpower. One of my consciousness could just be taking a nap. So that wouldn't
And
be
getting
all
the
bad.
dog at the vet, which apparently I have to go do now.
Right, right. Well, this has just been lovely, and I'm so glad we got to have this conversation and, hope we get to have another one sometime soon.
I'm
So I
sure.
really appreciate you being here, Cass.
Thank you, Bonnie, for having me. And thank you to all the listeners who listened. And if it makes it easier, I'm one of the easiest people to find on the internet. So anybody who has additional questions can reach out and find me, LinkedIn, wherever. I appreciate it. I love having these talks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Thank you for listening to Move Like This, brought to you by the Accounting Move Project and sponsored by Moss Adams, the Center for Accounting Transformation, and CPA Trendlines. If you'd like to learn more, visit our website at accountingmoveproject.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends and colleagues too. I'm your host, Bonnie Buol Ruszczyk, and until next time, keep moving forward.